I'd like to call to order the regular City Council meeting of April 11th, 2011, with a roll call, please.
Mayor Martini.
Here.
City Clerk Patterson here. Council members Ratty, absent. Lawson.
Here.
Smith.
Here. Who?
Kerrigan. Schmidt.
Here.
City Manager Carey.
Here.
City Attorney Adams. We have quorum.
Okay, Pastor Butler will not be here today. If we'd all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Mr. Lawson, would you lead us?
Yes, please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just a quick note here. For the people at the dais, if you want to speak, make sure you push your button so that the red circle comes on. If you don't, it won't go on the record very well. So when you make a motion or whatever, please signal in and I'll acknowledge you, and then you can your microphone will be on at all times. Okay, let's move on. Comments from the public? I have no speaker cards. Anyone want to speak? Seeing none, let's move to approval of the agenda. Anybody want to take anything out of order or pull anything? If not, looking for a motion. Just signal in. You did?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve the agenda as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously with those present. Next is recommendation to approve minutes of the regular meeting of March 28, 2011. Let's see here. Any additions or corrections? If not, looking for a motion. Good.
Move to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve the minutes as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously with those present. Thank you. Next, we have announcements, presentations, recognition items. First of all, we have a proclamation for Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Is there someone here to accept this? Please come on down and give us your name for the record, and then I'll read the proclamation and let you speak if you would like. Yes.
My name is Nancy Owens, Communications Supervisor.
Thanks, Nancy. City of Sparks proclamation. Whereas residents of Sparks dial 911 or the communication section for help in emergencies and on a routine basis. And whereas the men and women who answer these calls gather vital information and dispatch public safety assistance, often making the difference between life and death. And whereas our emergency communications dispatchers are among the more than 500,000 telecommunications specialists who work daily to protect the public and promote public safety. And whereas our emergency communications dispatchers are the first contact for a person in crisis and are knowledgeable, highly trained employees who work closely with police, fire, and emergency medical personnel. Whereas Sparks residents enjoy a high standard of public safety and owe a great debt to the emergency communications personnel who apply their expertise in dispatching help to ensure public safety. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim April 10th through the 16th, 2011, Public Safety Telecommunications Week, and join with the City Council in acknowledging and thanking our public safety dispatchers, Joanna Bellamy, Amy Brown, David Brown, Lisa R. Buckles, Shelley Burkhart, May Crandall, Maureen Diet, Mary Hale, Lori Howard, Melissa Nabong, Nancy Owens, Lisa Rose Brown, Cheryl Sluis Moreno, Sherry Terry, and Denise Wagner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just a few words on behalf of the Dispatch Center. We truly appreciate their recognition. The women and men that I work with are amazing people who are truly dedicated to their jobs. And thank you on behalf of the Dispatch Center.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks for being here to represent the rest of the group. Appreciate it. Okay, next we have a proclamation which is not on the agenda. It came in late, but we're going to read it. And if I could have Pamela Brooks come up to the front, please. Welcome, Pamela. Right there in the chair.
Thank you.
Pamela is with Planned Parenthood. Recently started, I believe, not too long ago. So,
Yes, Hello?
hello.
Yes, I'm with Planned Parenthood, but today I'm here in my capacity as secretary on the board of Alliance for Victims' Rights.
Okay. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation, present it, and then you can say a few words. City of Sparks proclamation. Whereas over 20 million Americans are victims of crime each year, and victims may suffer emotional, physical, psychological, and financial harm as a result of crime. And whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to addressing the needs of victims of crime and to celebrate more than 35 years of legislation that protects victims and their rights. And whereas the City of Sparks supports the objectives of National Crimes Victims' Rights Week 2021-11, Reshaping the Future, Honoring the Past, by raising awareness of crime victim issues, assisting victims, and working to offset the effects of crime in our community. Recognizing that our efforts built on 35 years of legislation and advocacy. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, do hereby proclaim April 10th to the 16th, 2011, National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and reaffirm the commitment of the City of Sparks to helping victims of crime rebuild their lives through support services and victim compensation during National Crime Victims' Rights Weeks and throughout the year.
I would just like to thank the council and Mayor Martini for acknowledging this week and invite you and the council and everyone in attendance to our candlelight vigil, which is at the Millsby Lane Justice Center on Wednesday at 5:30. We're very fortunate to have many heroes and advocates in Sparks, Reno, and Washoe County, which we are looking forward to honoring for their commitment to victims' rights and protecting us all. Thank you.
Pamela, thank you for what you do in the community. We appreciate it. Okay, 4.2, presentation of the Pyramid Way US 395 Connector Project and the Pyramid Way McCarran Boulevard Intersection Improvements Project. Mr. Gibson. I know it's not working. Let me go ahead, Lee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. For the record, I'm Lee Gibson, RTC of Washoe County. We're here today to give you an update on all of the Pyramid Corridor projects that we have underway. We're going to specifically talk about the Pyramid McCarran Intersection Project, then we're going to talk about the Pyramid 395 Connector. I do, however, want to start off by just quickly noting we have a number of regional initiatives that are touching Sparks. These include the Southeast Connector, obviously, a project that we've all been working on cooperatively for a long time, and we've had a lot of recent movement on that project as we get ready to move into the design of the bridge, as well as obtain our U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permits. We're also this year going to be starting 2 corridor studies, one on 4th Street, Prater Way, and Audie Boulevard. These are 2 new initiatives on the part of the RTC to work, again, with the help of your staff and help identify short-term mobility, safety, pedestrian, bicycle-type improvements. 4th Street in particular will be a significant project for us as we look to evaluate and hopefully implement some enhancements to the transit system along 4th Street. Last but not least, I would like to point out that I believe it's this Saturday. Is that right, Michael? Sunday. We will be having our bus rodeo over at the Nugget. And Mr. Mayor, I believe you have signed up for that.
Absolutely.
For that activity, and we look forward to hopefully seeing many of you at this event.
It's a good opportunity to run over things with a big bus. So.
That's right.
Do you expect any better performance this year?
No, not really. Last year I ran over a lot of things. I run over a lot of things this year too.
What time is it?
The mayor's competition will be at 9:30.
Just so we can clear the streets?
Exactly.
More police protection. You like that? Anyway, we at the RTC will not comment on that matters. What we'd like to do is start our presentation and go into the Pyramid-McCarran intersection study. I guess I'll take this slide on the EIS community outreach. As many of you know, we've been out working with the community now for a little over a year, working with the residents and the business owners to come to solutions, options, alternatives, if you will, that would meet not only the long-term mobility needs, but also the needs and concerns of the neighborhoods, the businesses, and try to keep everyone at least somewhat happy. We've been very active in our listening. We wanted to be very specific to listening to the concerns of the folks. And what we did learn, we learned a number of things, and I think what you'll see as we go through the progression of slides that talk about the alternatives, or the alternative we're moving towards at Pyramid-McCarran intersection, you'll see how we've been able to incorporate the citizen comments into that design. So with that, I'll let Jeff take it over, and he can jump right into the meat of the engineering design issues. Jeff?
Thanks, Lee. This is the basic configuration of the Pyramid-McCarran intersection. Pyramid Highway is the vertical road. There it's labeled. McCarran is east and west. We're adding a dedicated westbound right turn lane from westbound McCarran to northbound Pyramid. We're adding a dedicated right turn, southbound right turn lane onto McCarran, and then the triple left from eastbound McCarran to northbound Pyramid. Pyramid will have 3 lanes in each direction, and then extending south for about a mile where we transition out of the improvements that we need for this intersection. As part of the public outreach that Lee talked about that we did, this was the original concept at the Queen intersection up on Pyramid. We took this out to the public back in February, I believe, and we had some comments about this curve here. The Wedekind neighborhood wasn't really particularly happy about how they thought that traffic would be encouraged to use this as a cutoff. We had some problems here. This grade is pretty steep going up, and it cut off these properties. We spoke with these people at our meetings and came up with this concept. We changed the curve a little bit, which the neighborhood up here, the Wedekind people were happy with, and then we moved the Queenway back to where it was. So we'll have a right in, right out at Queenway, and that preserves the access into these properties here. We're also going to show Queenway at our next public meeting on April 20th. We're going to show Queenway as a cul-de-sac. Where'd my mouse go? Back in here. So we're going to get public comment on that. We'll be interested to see what people say, but we really like this and what it does for the neighborhood. We think we've got buy-in from the different quadrants here. This side here is just a concept of what the east side of McCarran's going to look, or Pyramid is going to look like. There's going to be lots of open space, and as we move through our environmental process and get into final design, we'll be looking at ways to leave this enhancement. We'll have pedestrian walkways, some type of ground treatments that may be landscaping.
We've got a question, Mr. Schmidt.
I'm sorry, you went by that very, very quickly. Can you go back to Queensway again and tell me what you mean that you're going to present it as a cul-de-sac?
Yeah, we will not perpetuate the access on Queenway out to Pyramid. So basically, cars would come in here and turn around in a cul-de-sac and go back out. There would be no through access onto Pyramid.
So what's that?
So it's a right-hand turn only onto Queenway off from Pyramid, but no entrance to Pyramid at all?
The right-hand turn would be gone. We're gonna keep this concept. So this right in, right out will be completely separate from the cul-de-sac idea. And then we would also show no connection here at all.
No connection at all?
No connection,
So,
yeah.
so no intersection on Queen and Pyramid?
Going to the east.
Going to the east.
Yeah.
But going to, Okay, I'm all confused now what that looks like. I mean,
So there simply would be no right turn here. You would just go.
Be no right turn off
There would be
Pyramid?
no opportunity for a right turn.
okay. And in your presentation on the 20th, is that a portion of the presentation that you're going to have for people, discussion of people to talk about?
Absolutely, yeah, we'll have
Okay.
that, we'll have both concepts. If people don't like it, we had some people that requested that we bring that cul-de-sac idea forward, so we'll see
I
what
believe in
people
traffic
think.
management, that's a great idea. I think, I hadn't heard about it, so I'm just kind of trying to think about it now, what it looks
Okay.
like. So I wanted to clarify that before we went in, but thank you, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Anyway, back to the open space that becomes available after those houses are removed to make room for the widening there. Lots of different ways this could go. This is just to show that we are going to take care of that area and enhance it. This is on the back side of the wall. Pyramid would be over on the other side. We need noise walls in there, so this is looking south on Nelson Way, some concepts that could be utilized. So the next step, we're wrapping up our draft EIS, and we're going to have it ready for submittal to Federal Highways towards the end of this year. That's a fairly lengthy process. We're hoping to have a record of decision, having everything complete by the end of 2012, and we'd be able to move in final design and right-of-way acquisition, starting construction at the latest spring 2015. The Pyramid 395 study that we have underway right now, this is a little brief history on where we've come since the corridor was initially studied back in 1998, some of the documents that have been developed and some of the planning that's driven the development of this alternative. We're about 13 years into this. We don't think we're going to be another 13 years. We should be able to deliver something here in the next 5 to 6. This is a view of 3 alternatives that we have for the curve where we would be transitioning traffic from Pyramid Highway over to 395. Down at the lower piece here is Dis Drive. So widening Pyramid down to this point and then cutting over the hill to 395 is one option. We come up on the hillside here with the other, and then up on top is our ridge alignment. So these are the 3 concepts we're carrying forward in our analysis to get traffic down Pyramid Corridor and then over to 395. This is just a view showing the north end of Pyramid Highway up at Eagle Canyon, Sparks Boulevard, where we'd have some interchange access. This is a controlled 6-lane facility. Just beyond this to the north would transition back to its 4-lane arterial configuration. These are just some concepts we're looking at for connecting into the Sun Valley Boulevard area. Lots of study is going on right now to look at what we need there. What is the community looking for? How can we enhance the community and get access onto our facility? Just some other options that we've come up with to access the connector from the Sun Valley area and how we're going to cross Sun Valley. This is the potential interchange that we would have at Parr Boulevard. Be a big system interchange up there where we'd bring that traffic across and then down on 395. Our first phase of improvements, once we get through the environmental process, would connect from 395 over to Pyramid at Dis Drive. So that would be our first phase of our project. So we'd have some relief on the Pyramid Highway corridor that's going to help out Pyramid McCarran intersection and keep that working within capacity. Again, more outreach there. We had some really good meetings out there in Sun Valley to listen to see what people thought about the project. We had some really good feedback. The next steps, we're again finishing our screening, working out what the configuration of our alternatives are going to be. We'll wrap up the draft EIS this year, submit it to Federal Highways, looking to have a final record of decision by 2014. Hopefully that'll actually be in 2013, but we'll see how it goes. Final design and right-of-way acquisition 15 and 17, and then actual construction of the initial segments 2018 to 2020. These are the 2 project managers. If you have specific questions, you can get a hold of them. Any questions?
Questions? Mr. Gary.
Just for the record, I know that in prior iterations of the Pyramid McCarran intersection, we had focused on an urban interchange. And could you talk a little bit about its evolution to where now it's just an expanded at-grade intersection so that we can capture the reasons for those changes?
Well, I guess several years ago, they had began looking at the traffic volumes that the Pyramid McCarran intersection was going to carry, and they had developed some direct connect flyover type movements that were very, very, just a lot of impacts, very, very expensive. As the study moved forward on the Pyramid 395 connector, and we were able to alleviate some of the traffic demand down on the Pyramid intersection through the bringing the traffic over from Disc Drive over to Pyramid 395, that allowed us to scale back the Pyramid McCarran intersection. What we really needed was the triple left going to the north and then the free right coming south, so we were able to scale back the project because of the connectivity that we're developing up on the Pyramid 395 connector.
And the second question on that intersection project is, are the right turn improvements from southbound Pyramid, are those possible to implement before this project receives its FHWA clearance?
It would be possible to implement a short right turn lane. The difficulty in that is it requires right-of-way, whereas our ultimate configuration does not. So we would widen for the short right turn lane. We would need property from Mrs. Lager-Messino there on the corner. There's a utility conflict with a power pole. And then we would have to go back in a matter of maybe 2 years, tear that out and restore it back because we don't need that. We're actually widening away from it. So that is the difficulty, is it becomes about an $800,000, $900,000 throwaway.
And you would recommend against that at this point?
We would, with the timing of how long it would take to implement the short right-hand turn lane.
And the last question, there was in prior iterations on the Pyramid corridor study for your new alignment, there was some thought of an extension going to the east of the Pyramid off-ramp and an alignment between Disc Drive and Queen Way, somewhere through that open space up there. And I notice your plans today don't include any extensions further towards Sparks Boulevard. Are those alignments been eliminated at this point so that we're focusing on the improvements you're showing today?
They have been eliminated. We're carrying the backwards L, if you will,
right
down South Pyramid and then over to the west.
Okay.
Our travel demand and origin destination shows traffic preferring to make that movement. Surprisingly, we have a lot of traffic that goes from the North Valley area out to Stead. So people would be more inclined to make that movement headed to the west than they would to go out almost against their desired travel path. Okay. So we've dropped those from further consideration.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you guys for the update. Appreciate it. The microphones seem to be working correctly now, so if you want to speak, just buzz in. If I'm smart enough to figure it out, we'll be able to work this. So, okay, next is 4.3, presentation on the flashing yellow arrow signal. Jim Herman. Welcome.
Let's see. Okay, hello, Jim Herman. I work for the Transportation Division, and I'm going to give you a presentation about the flashing yellow arrows that you might have seen around town, how they work and what we're doing it for. It's in the background behind it is that we've got a lot of research that we're trying to cut down on accidents, people turning left in front of other people, and also to get some operational improvements. It's been reviewed by the Transportation Research Board, and they've tested it in simulators, and basically the design that you see out there today, which I'll go over here, it's the one that was the most well received by the public after all the research. NDOT created a brochure that would be put out as well so that everybody would understand how these things work. And then RTC and NDOT have done informational advertising as well. Here are the reasons why we want to do this. As you can see, the red car turning in front of the blue one, and you get an accident where they're trying to turn. The feeling is that with this new design, it will cut down on that type of accident, which can be rather severe. And so we're trying to make it a little safer that way. And then we're looking at the efficiency angle, where we, in light traffic times, we may not need to have a green arrow necessarily. So we would just simply go to the flashing yellow arrow, which would allow a permissive left turn to occur, which means that we're not wasting time, if you will, on a green arrow and then going back to a green ball and all that. We also have an option to perform what's called a lead lag operation, where the left turn arrow on some parts of the day might be turning green first, and other parts of the day it might be turning green last. And that would assist us in getting cars moved down a corridor. And that's an option we don't have with the existing configuration. The traditional that you see is the 5-section signal head, and that is the one that we've been using for decades. And it's the sense is that there's a bit of a deception because you have a green ball indication up, and people see the green ball and think that it's time to go. The newer configuration, you basically get a separate left turn indicator, which that's what you'll be seeing. You won't see the green ball anymore, and we're hoping that that might help, along with the flashing yellow arrow, to trigger in people's minds that they really should take it easy and wait for an opening here and not try to rush anything. Let's see. And here is how these work. I have a little animation that should...
I got a question for you, Jim. 1 second. Sure. Go ahead, Ron.
Jim, is there are these flashing yellows, can they be used on every street, or is there a speed limit where you don't, for instance, 45 on Vista?
Right. That's
too fast?
Right, yes.
What's the...
Usually about 35 miles an hour is the top. After about 35, you start to lose your ability to judge the speed that people are coming at you, and it's been shown that accident rates increase. After that, we are working right now with UNR to develop a technique of determining when and where would be the proper place based on traffic volumes and traffic accidents, the type of accidents, things like that, so that we can put them in the most safe locations.
Thank you.
So this little animation here can tell you a little bit how it would look out in the street in the various configurations. Basically, okay, in this condition, everybody would be stopped and waiting. This would mean that a left turn is allowed for the left turner. There's no through. In this configuration here, the opposing green light is also on, and that's when the flashing yellow arrow is going. In this configuration, the throughs that you're traveling in would stop, but you'd still be able to make a permissive left turn. And what's going on in the other direction is there's a through green ball. It looks just like this in the other direction when the red lights are on and the yellow arrow is flashing. I can't speed it up or slow it down, so I can't really stop it to show you what it looks like. But basically, in this configuration, where there's two red balls and a flashing yellow arrow, in the opposing direction is actually a green ball and a green left turn arrow. And so it's a little different than what you're used to seeing, but it is going to be more efficient and we hope a little more safe. And part of it is the way that it clears. It goes from a green arrow to a solid yellow arrow to a red arrow and then down to the flashing yellow, which means that it actually will stop a car that might be attempting to turn. And then when the yellow arrow begins to flash, they could go ahead and go if it's safe to go. Whereas the way it works today, in the older section, it would go from in the traditional one, it would go from the green arrow to the yellow arrow to the red ball. And somebody might decide to go ahead and go that time, and or when it goes to the green ball and then the yellow ball, they might decide to go ahead and and make that turn, and that might cause the accident. Okay, this is what's coming up next. At this point, all we're doing is we're doing the traditional signal heads, the 5-section signal heads that are out there right now. And all we're going to do is retrofit those that are in the correct configuration. The new rules require that a left turn pocket has a left turn signal separate from the through indications. So if the mast arms are long enough, then we'll go ahead and replace the 5-section signal head with this 4-section signal head here. That's going to be phase 1, and that's what we're working on right now, and that's why some of those that you see out there are installed now, is because they were basically ready to go. Phase 2 of the project, which is going to be coming up, we don't have a schedule on it yet, but that's going to be at locations where we have to replace the traffic signal pole because we need a longer mast arm, or some other, maybe we need to put a new traffic signal cabinet in because the old one won't work. So that one's coming, but we don't know exactly when we're going to get to that. We're in the process of design right now with NDOT. RTC is also reviewing some locations, for example, like Gregg and Rock, where we have a protected left turn in all 4 directions. And we're going to review it using the technique that UNR, that we're working with UNR on, to see if we can change it to a flashing yellow arrow also. May be possible, may not. But the nice part about this signal head is even if it doesn't, even if it's not needed, you can always never turn the flashing yellow on. You can just have it be protected only with a green arrow and a yellow arrow and a red arrow. So either way, it'll work fine. And that's how it works.
Questions for Jim? Mr. Addy.
So on Rock and Gregg, that's a great example, because it seems like at certain times of the day it would be helpful, and at other times of the day it would be nearly impossible because you couldn't take a left turn on that flashing yellow. So can they be intermittent, or maybe that's not the right word, but programmed?
It would be time of day. It would be time of day. So during the rush hour, we would not turn on the flashing yellow arrow, but at 8 o'clock at night, we might.
Okay. So you don't have to sit at that?
Yes.
Sure.
Mr. Lawson.
Jim, you said they're programmable. Are they programmable from a central location, or do you have to physically be at that intersection?
It would load a program. And so it's much like the way it works today, where we turn on coordination. For example, in the mornings on Pyramid Way, everything goes southbound. And McCarran, everything goes southbound. If you're traveling in a southbound direction, we're going to move the most cars in that direction. In the evenings, we turn it around and go the other way. Using that same programming method, we can tell it to turn on the flashing yellow arrow or turn it off.
So does it give you that ability to have it at a central location then?
Yes, it does.
So you can monitor it from there and
yes,
make the changes. Perfect.
Any other questions? Okay.
That's it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, next is presentation item 4.4, presentation on the Sparks Fire Department Project Safe Residential Smoke Alarm Program. Welcome.
It's not going to stretch. I need to trade places. My mouse arm isn't working.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council, city manager. I'm Fire Marshal Bob King, and this is Inspector Michelle Peltier. And we're here to give you an update presentation on a fire and life safety program that you probably heard a little bit about over the last few years called Project Safe, Survive a Fire Emergency. It's our residential smoke alarm program. And this right here, that sound right there is one annoying sound that you want to hear in the middle of the night. If there's any sound that you want to hear in the middle of the night, this is it. Let me do it one more time so you hear that.
Except when the batteries are low, you can't.
We can give you tips on that.
A shotgun.
We can give you tips on that. No, not a shotgun, and you don't pull out the wires and that kind of stuff. No, that is one annoying sound that you want to hear in the middle of the night when you have a fire or smoke going on in your house. That's one you want to hear, because that's what's going to get you out of the house in the middle of the night and get your family out of the house quickly. You only have a few minutes to get out of the house when a fire occurs. If you remember back in 2006, we had a devastating fatality fire in the city of Sparks that kind of woke us up and said, we need to get out there and educate the community in smoke alarms and the use of smoke alarms, where they go, how they work, how you maintain them. So we did that. We went out from 2007. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
They take about 5 minutes to reset.
Yeah, it takes a few minutes to reset. So, but
the battery's out. I bet you it still chirps, doesn't it?
No.
Do as I say, not as I do.
It just takes 5 minutes to reset. It's a brand new one. Trust me.
Go ahead.
From 2007 to 2010, we went out and did a big education program throughout our community, utilizing all the different types of media that we could, radio, TV, newspaper, everything we could to educate the public in the community. And then from 2010 to 2011, we were, through the knowledge and experience of Inspector Michelle, by being able to write a grant, we received a $32,000 grant to purchase all the smoke detectors and material that we need to go out and do an installation part of the program in one part of the oldest part of our community. And so we did that. And today we'd like to just give you an update on the results of that program and just show you that we're very proud that we did meet our program goals and our grant goals for that program.
Just to give you some quantitative data on the impact of the results of the program, we know these take 5 minutes to reset because we installed 921 of these throughout the city of Sparks. We also put in 120 10-year lithium batteries. We would put these 10-year batteries into any smoke alarm we found existing in a home if it was less than 2 years old, which means that you don't have to change your batteries. That old adage, change your clock, change your battery, is not valid with these, and it also means they're not going to wake you up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning with a low battery beep like you heard today. So I strongly recommend 10-year batteries for everybody. We also installed 12 kits for the hearing impaired. We have wireless transmitters that go on any smoke alarm, and they attach to a strobe kit that they can keep in their main living area, and also a bed shaker that goes under their pillow. So both of those things will go off if the smoke detector alarms and wakes somebody who is hard of hearing. We provided fire safety education for over 1,000 people. We had 298 homes, averaging out about 4 people in each home. That was over 1,000 people. We also reached an indeterminate number of people through different media arms like Spotlight on Sparks. We worked with Adam Mayberry to get the message across, and radio, TV stations, newspapers, everybody was just great. Only 6 out of every 10 homes that we visited had at least one working alarm. 8 out of the 10 homes that we visited did have an alarm, but most of those didn't work at all. 62% of the homes that did have at least one working alarm needed replacements because those were over 10 years old. Most of our homes are over 10 years old. Most of those have the existing smoke alarms. Once an alarm gets to be 10 years old or older, it stops detecting smoke more than half the time. Over 83% of the homes with working smoke alarms needed more alarms. So we've added alarms in a lot of bedrooms, hallways, and on different levels of homes. Another difference that the educational program with Project Safe Survive a Fire Emergency made was extending the education and the safety messages. We can't tell you how many people heard the messages on the radio, TV, and the newspapers, the different articles that were going out, and the emails. Other citizens, surrounding communities, and our volunteers that helped with the program are also replacing smoke alarms, checking theirs monthly, and practicing escape plans with their homes and their families. The residents were just as appreciative of the fire safety education. It was wanted and needed just as much as the smoke alarms themselves.
With that, we couldn't have done this program at all without a lot of help from volunteers. We had not only our own fire department staff, but we had members from the city. George Graham, which is Sparks Housing Rehabilitation Program, helped us out going out and installing smoke alarms in the home. That was kind of a neat mix anyways, because it helped him out in his program as well. We kind of worked together on that. We have members from Real Construction, if they would just wave back. Real Construction was great volunteers for our program. They, almost all of their employees came and worked the installation dates with us, because we did 3 different dates, and they all came out and helped us install smoke alarms out there. We had 8 to 10 teams of fire department staff and volunteers from the community that helped us out do this. Gloria Palma was another person that helped us do all the Spanish translation for the brochures that we handed out there. We couldn't have reached that part of our community if we didn't have that, so that was a huge help for us. Ed Harney is one of our part-time employees with the fire department working on our juvenile fire setter education program, but he even came out on his own time and helped too. So fire tech students, Barbecue House and Gather at Home Catering helped us out with our lunches as well, and volunteered lunches and that. I mean, it was just, without all the volunteers from the community, we really couldn't have done this. So we want to give just a great thank you to all of those publicly that helped us out. With that, some of the community accolades that we had from the residents.
Every single person that we went to, every home completed an evaluation, and each aspect of the numerical values on that evaluation were top. Every single one was a 5. So there was just outstanding recognition. They were all very, very grateful. Some of the specific comments were, they knocked on my door. Thank God. What a wonderful program. Now I feel safe and protected. Thank you. This is absolutely the best program the fire department has done for members of this community. This project will save many lives. It will help low-income seniors live safe. Very professional people. Would highly recommend. Friendly and thoughtful throughout. A lot of the evaluations, the comments, gave specific recognition to the teams by name. We've received phone calls, emails, letters. Hopefully some of you have received some of those as well, because they really wanted you guys to know how important the program was to them, because the smoke alarm is the only thing that's going to wake people up if they're asleep in the middle of the night and they have a fire.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, because we sent out door hangers, went out and had door hangers put up all over the areas that we picked in the community. And even with door hangers and flyers and media, people are still kind of skeptical, of it. So we went out and just started knocking on doors as well. We had some people that called up and scheduled, and then the rest of the time we just went out and started knocking on doors. We were dressed in either uniform, or the volunteers were all dressed in shirts that we had made up for them that said Project Safe Volunteer on it. And so once we came to the door, then they knew it was real, that this wasn't someone trying to sell something. And once we told them about the program, they said, okay, yeah, come on in. I saw that flyer, but I wasn't sure. So the knocking on the doors was a big success for us. What's our future plans with this program? We're going to continue every year for as long as we can to go out and educate the public with this. It's one of those things, as we get older, we forget about things like that. So you need constant reminders to make you remember. We're going to continue that with public service announcements. We have it on our website with our community partners. We're going to continue that. Michelle has written another grant to FEMA for about the same amount of money.
A little bit more, actually, because we're going to add carbon monoxide alarms this time, too.
So she's written another grant where we're adding the carbon monoxide alarms. Have you ever seen the signboards out at our fire stations that have fire safety messages on them? We put this as part of that too, so we can update those signboards to make them look really nice, and people will be able to really see them even better than they do now. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we get that. The last thing that we're doing, last year we had a golf tournament fundraiser, our first one. We made $8,000 profit off that. I couldn't believe it. It was the first time we've ever done that, and the community just really came out and supported that a lot. So we're doing another one, our second annual golf tournament fundraiser. Again, this year will be on July 30th. I've already started advertising that, and we're going to continue advertising that. We hope to fill it up, 144 players, and the goal this year is to try to get over 10,000 for this program. That'll, again, if we get both, the grant and that'll just help us buy more smoke alarms, more carbon monoxide detectors, more fire safety paraphernalia to get out to the community. So that's what we're doing. We wanted to give you a quick update on everything that we've done, so you know what we've done. We appreciate your approval to go out and obtain these grants and be able to go out in the community and do this.
Questions, Ron Smith?
Is this Project SAFE, is this something you came up with and then went after the grants, or is this a national type program?
Well, Project SAFE is our program.
It's your program.
For the City of Sparks. There's other types of residential smoke alarm programs out there. And so at the beginning of this, we did a lot of research on that and read a whole bunch of other different programs and then put together our own.
Good. Is Reno or the county doing this?
Not yet. They're slowly.
Not yet. They did buy smoke alarms, and they had those available at their fire departments because they were getting a lot of calls.
I think it's a great program, and I've gotten emails on that too, saying, and not only, like you mentioned earlier, not only the fire alarm, but the professionalism of the people that were doing it and the education they provided on why they were doing it and how to use them and everything else.
Thank
so,
you.
Congratulations on it.
Now, Story County did put in for a grant to do exactly the same thing.
Good.
And we're also have some people in the southern part of the state that are modeling their programs after hours.
Great. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, just real quick. I think it's fabulous. Congratulations. And I just wanted, there was somebody named Jessica Moore on your slide, and I don't think you brought her name up. And if there was somebody you were wanting to recognize, I wanted to make sure you didn't miss them.
Yes, Jessica Moore.
Jessica Moore gathered all the Girl Scouts together.
And I didn't even know that that's who it was.
Paradise District.
Likely story.
Girl Scout advocate.
What are the odds, really, that it would be a Girl
Did she
Scout?
have cookies with her too when she was?
I did buy cookies from her, but that was separate, and they're gone. But yeah, she gathered all the Girl Scouts together. They did the door hangers for us. Jessica has moved now to Iowa, so anybody that has a Girl Scout or Boy Scout troop that would like to participate with us going forward, we'd definitely love to have you.
Of course, you already knew that Jessica moved away. Yeah. Okay. Good job. Thanks. Appreciate it.
No, that's great. Nobody's ever going to believe I didn't know.
Okay, let's move on to consent items. Anybody want to pull the consent item? If not, looking for a motion. Mr. Smith.
Move to approve consent item 5.1 through 5.1.
Do we have a second? Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty to approve agenda item 5.1. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question.
Questions, Mr. Kerrigan?
Thank you. There was like 3 places that made it a point to say there were no transfers made to the Regional Planning Governing Board.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
we don't do their payroll and stuff anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that everybody knew that. Okay.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Okay, moving on. 6.1, consideration and possible acceptance of a grant from the Nell J. Redfield Foundation in the amount of $30,000 for the Sparks Parks and Recreation Department to continue various programming in 2011. Welcome, ladies.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council.
Manager Perry. I'm Shauna Nelson. I'm Recreation Supervisor. And I just wanted to take a minute to thank the Nell J. Redfield Foundation for supporting us and providing this grant funding for us. The program, or the funding, goes to support a couple of our programs for underserved in our community, specifically at-risk youth and people with disabilities. The at-risk youth participate in a program, the Nell J. Redfield Free Neighborhood Playground Program, which takes place in Ardmore Park during the summer months. It's for
That's
kindergarten.
$30,000 worth right there.
Yeah, honestly. Then it's for kindergarten through 6th graders. And that's a free program in the summer. And then the Leisure Without Limits programs are for people with disabilities, and those run year-round through our department. Any questions?
Questions? You know, it's great these foundations really step up, especially now when it's important, so much more important than it is normally for them to do this, because we would not be doing these programs without them, would we?
No.
So
No.
we really appreciate it. There's a lot of them out there that don't get enough recognition of the things they do in their community, so we appreciate it. Any other questions? If not, looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
I'll move that the council allow the Sparks Parks and Recreation Department to accept this grant as outlined from the Nell J. Redfield Foundation in the amount of $30,000.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Mr. Kerrigan, second. It's been moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Kerrigan to approve agenda item 6.1. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, ladies. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Okay, next is 6.2, consideration and possible acceptance of the Recreational Trails Program Project Agreement between the City of Sparks and the State of Nevada Division of State Parks. Welcome, sir. Just give your name for the record.
Rick Darby, Parks and Recreation, Mayor, Council, City Manager. I'm here to request approval of a grant that we applied for back in September of 2010. It's from the Nevada Division of State Parks. It's to help us with our Whittican Regional Trail Project, Regional Park Trail Project. It's a matching grant. Our share is 21%. It's $17,925 of the $86,425 that we asked for. So
that's it.
That's it.
Questions? Seeing none, looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
I'd move that the council accept this recreational trails program project agreement between the City of Sparks and the State of Nevada Division of State Parks.
Do you have a second? Mr. Smith?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve agenda item 6.2. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, Rick. Okay, 6.3, are you doing this one too?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 6.3, consideration and possible approval of a naming of one park. Go ahead.
It happens to be Whittican Park, so
Okay.
thought we'd give it a
You're on
name
a roll.
since we're accepting grants. It went through Parks and Recreation Commission. They had several names considered. They came up with Whittican Regional Park, and we're looking for your approval to implement that.
Questions? Mr. Schmidt.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make sure that the name of is a Whittican Regional Park, not Whittican Regional Park north of Queen Way and east of Pyramid Way.
That one does sound better, doesn't it? Rolls off.
Well, I'm just saying it's in the agenda that way. It's in the agenda that way, and it looks like that we approve the agenda, just approve it as the Whittican Regional Park and leave the rest of
That's
it off.
what we intend.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, it doesn't really roll off your tongue that good. Okay, any other questions? Looking for a motion. Mr. Schmidt.
Motion to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Schmidt, seconded by Councilman Kerrigan to approve agenda item 6.3, naming of Whittican Regional Park. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Now, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next is 6.4. Consideration and possible approval of an interlocal agreement with the Nevada Department of Transportation for the proposed improvements along the Nugget Avenue off-ramp between Rock Boulevard and 14th Street. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The item before you today for your consideration and possible approval is an interlocal agreement with the Nevada Department of Transportation for improvements along Nugget Avenue between Rock Boulevard and 14th Street. NDOT has developed improvement plans for the addition of a roundabout located adjacent to the existing driveway entering the parking area on the north side of the Nugget ramp. The improvements will provide improved access to the parking area from 14th Street. Two-way traffic will be permitted between 14th Street and the proposed roundabout along Nugget Avenue. This improvement will provide better ingress and egress for downtown special events. NDOT has agreed to fund 100% of the proposed project costs. As outlined in the staff report, city staff requested decorative lighting to enhance the attractiveness of the proposed project. The lights will be identical to the LED fixtures along the East Victorian Avenue. NDOT is reluctant to maintain these type of lights, but would be agreeable to the request if the city were to maintain the fixtures. To expedite the construction schedule, NDOT requested that the city purchase the light fixtures. NDOT is amenable to reimbursing the cost of the fixtures, installing 4 decorative lights, and supplying the city with 2 additional poles and fixtures for future maintenance purposes. That concludes my presentation, and Tony Lorenzi is a senior project manager with NDOT, and he would be available to answer any questions.
Questions, Ron Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How does this differ from the existing agreement we have, memorandum of understandings?
Which agreement is that?
The interlocal agreement we did in order to make all the right-of-way transfers and the whole stuff with Nugget. We went through this already once to create this interlocal
Back in
agreement.
1986, is that the agreement
No, we
you're
just did
referring
one
to?
a couple months ago. It's about 3 months ago. December we did one. So
That was a memo of understanding back in December. And so we're just finalizing all of the agreements now.
Okay. So what was not in the memorandum of understanding is down here today, and that's to do with those light fixtures? We want to change light fixtures?
Yeah, that would be our participation. And really, it's to finalize the 1986 agreement to transfer all the property to NDOT.
All right. Thank you.
Further questions? Mr. Carey.
John, we anticipate as soon as the balance of the railroad right-of-way can come in, that NDOT will work this into a construction schedule. Is that correct? That's correct.
Yes. And just to give you a little brief, some information on that, I've been working with Omaha and the UP folks, and we should have a draft agreement tomorrow. And so hopefully we will be moving forward with that transfer of property with UP. And it's we're going to suggest that we abandon or vacate right-of-way that we have. And then the UP property that resides within the right-of-way would become ours, and then we would transfer it over to the Nugget. So that's coming before this council here fairly shortly.
Coming to a council near you.
There you go.
And we're working on a construction schedule to take into account the special events and sparks, so we don't, interrupt the July 4th weekend and the hot August nights and everything else. So.
Good. Questions? Okay, if not, looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
Move to approve the interlocal agreement with the Nevada Department of Transportation for the proposed improvements along Nugget Avenue off-ramp between Rock Boulevard and 14th Street. And I do that saying thank you for thinking of the lights and doing it now, so we're not trying to figure out how to do that later. We've made some great progress down there, and it's good to see that moving forward.
Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve agenda item 6.4. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Okay, passes 4-1. Mr. Kerrigan is a no. Thank you. Thanks, John. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Lorenzi, thank you very much. Okay, 6.5. Consideration and possible direction to city staff regarding an appeal by Galleria Station LLC of staff's decision to require performance bonds for infrastructure required to support the Galleria Station project. Mr. Kreutz.
Good afternoon, Mayor Martini and members of the City Council. For the record, Neil Kreutz, Acting Community Services Director. Before you today with an appeal from the Galleria Station LLC, or the developer of the Cassoulet condominium project. It's a 270-unit project that was first entitled in 2005 and partially constructed. As you're well aware, when the city grants entitlements, it requires that bonds be posted for the public infrastructure that will be coming with the project, and that is to provide some surety that that infrastructure will be in place when the project is finished and people want to move in. Routinely, and actually per our city code, that work is required to be done within a 24-month period. Now, certainly, given the state of the economy, we have not looked into requiring that everything be done within a 24-month period. That just doesn't make sense for anybody. It would be spending money for infrastructure that simply is not needed. So we've set that portion of the city code aside. But we have asked the development community, when we're in a situation where they have received the entitlement in terms of finally mapped lots and the infrastructure is in some state of completion, to keep the bonds in place so that the city does have a surety that the infrastructure will either A, be completed, or that we would have the opportunity, should the developer place us in a situation where it has to be completed. Case in point would be, if property changed hands and we had somebody standing in front of us with wanting to build there and needing to access that infrastructure, that we would be able to cause it to be completed. That said, the developer, and I'm sure they're here today and they will certainly speak for themselves, they are looking for a way to remove those bonding requirements. It does place a cash flow burden upon them, and so I can certainly understand financially where they're coming from. They have asked us to consider a deed restriction, or that the city be willing to allow a deed restriction to be placed on the property that would indicate no additional permits or entitlements would be granted until such a time as the bonds were restored. In reviewing that with the city attorney's office, we have, in case in first, looked towards our city code to see if that's an allowable alternative, and it's not. So we rejected it on that basis. Secondarily, in looking to see if that was a good idea for a possible way to go forward, we reached the conclusion that it's not, that it would actually potentially place the city at risk. Certainly a deed restriction could go in place. It would become our responsibility to make sure that nothing happened until that was satisfied, and then also be in the position that if something were to go sideways and the deed restriction were missed and we got into some portion of an entitlement, that the requirement to have the public infrastructure would still be there, but at that point in time the city wouldn't have the ability, via the developer's bond, developer's money, to cause said infrastructure to be completed. So we did communicate with the applicant at this point and said that we weren't interested in going that way, but in the name of trying to find a path forward that met everybody's needs, we did talk about a process that is discussed in our code, where they would revert the lots to acreage. We would go through a reversion to acreage map, something you guys have seen on and off over the years. Pardon me. And where we have agreed to try and work cooperatively with the developer is to then follow that up immediately with a new tentative map. And you'll recall from our city code that new tentative maps cost in the order of $24,000 or $25,000, and revisions to tentative maps are listed at $14,000. What I have offered to the developer in this case is that we would revert the lots to acreage, follow it up with a new tentative map where we would simply take the old tentative map, essentially, or in a roundabout way, change the date, carry it forward, so there would be a minimal amount of staff time required to get this thing considered by the Planning Commission and brought forward here. We would do that on time and materials basis, and I estimated that it would take $2,000 to $3,000 worth of city effort to carry that through to its completion. The tentative map would buy them that level of entitlement for 4 years and does not carry a bonding requirement with it. So I believe that process, the reversion to acreage followed by a tentative map where we're using the old staff report, the old conditions, and we bring it through the process again, would serve both of our needs. It would relieve the bonding requirement, which has a benefit to them. It makes the lots go away with the risk or with the bond. That satisfies our concerns in terms of not wanting to take on unnecessary risk. But putting a tentative map right back on top of it does give them an increased level of security in their entitlement, if you will. That said, the one umbrella that overlies all of that is the fact that this is in a plan development handbook. And those plan development handbooks, as you well know, do not expire. They are good forever or until modified via a public process, as you did earlier in your agenda today. We amended the red handbook. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. That was Planning Commission last Thursday night. I'm sorry. I'll be sorry about that. I'll be back in May with that. Okay, so you're paying attention. All right, this is okay. That's good. It is. So, with that said, I'll wrap up by saying that this these discussions that we've had with the developer have been very cordial and very respectful. This is not an adversarial situation in any way, shape, or form. We're simply trying to look for a solution that meets everybody's needs. I think that from the city standpoint, we've laid out, a method, a reasonable method by way of that reduced cost tentative map, being a little bit creative, thinking out of the box. And I hope that's something that we'll find the developer, willing to at least discuss further. But with that, I'll conclude my comments, answer your questions, and then it's probably appropriate to give them an opportunity to have their say.
No problem. Questions, Ron Smith?
Was the developer receptive to the reduced prices on the tentative map?
They certainly, I think, appreciate the effort or the indication from staff that we are willing to do that. They did point out that the city costs are not the only costs that they would incur in carrying forward a new tentative map. They would certainly have consulting costs. They would have costs in seeking new approvals from other agencies as well. But the short answer is yes. I think they appreciate the effort that we've laid on the table.
Well, then I'd like to ask the developer if they're interested in that. If that's something that can be worked out.
Rod, you want to wait until after this to ask your question?
Am I on? Oh, okay. For the record, Randy Walter, Places Consulting. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of city staff, good afternoon. Mr. Jeff Pemstein is here with me, part of the Galleria Station LLC group. Let me just start by giving a little preference, and then we'll answer your question directly as best we can. The thing about bonding, and that's really what we're talking about, is the performance bonds. The old paradigm was you establish a performance bond to ensure that the improvements are built, as staff mentioned, in a reasonable time, 24 months. And under our prior paradigm, which has been shifted for all of us, as you all are very much aware of, as well as we are, that worked great. We're in a different paradigm now. We're just trying to find a solution to where we are now in the current state of affairs, because our current state of affairs is totally different than the norm, totally different than what the city ordinance was originally intended to cover. So we're just trying to find a solution. I'd like to compliment staff and thank staff for all their work on this. We have been trying to find a solution. There's not always a good solution given where we're at with the current ordinance and the current state of affairs, but we're just trying to find a way to make that work. Jeff, maybe you can answer the question about the tentative map.
So, and I appreciate your indulgence today. So, and I appreciate Neil's description. I mean, it's apt. We have been trying to work through this. We're all sort of in a different world than we used to be. And so in terms of us as a development company, I mean, we've been in business for 62 years. We've seen a lot of ups and downs, none quite like the one we're looking at right now. And so we've made some very strong commitments to being part of Castellet on through its future. I mean, we're continuing on as the HOA managers. We continue to subsidize the homeowners association to make sure it functions. And we understand that there's limitations in what the city can and cannot do. What we're trying to find, and it may at the end of the day be the only alternative, is to using this reversion to acre. Generally, as a developer, that kind of gives us the willies, because you're basically going back through the process again. And so we think, once you vet a project, you vet it. And that's, you put your conditions on it, everybody puts their best foot forward, and you do your thing. In this case, if that's where we wind up landing, yeah, heck, we're going to do that. But we think that of equal or greater validity is to put some type of a deed restriction. I'm not an attorney, and I would defer to the wise counsel of your city attorney. But I have to believe that there is some way to utilize a deed restriction, which basically says, hey, nobody can build out there. Nobody can pull another building permit or put another stick up in the air until that bond is put back into place. What that bond does, and there's about $2 million in performance bonds out there today. It costs our company, on the magnitude of $15,000 a year. It sucks up the bonding capacity from within our company. So, we're grappling with trying to figure out how we basically protect your interest, protect our interest, but not throw money away for something that's likely not going to happen for a number of years.
And I thought with this that the city does not have the mechanism to allow the redistricting, and so that's part of the problem. The other issue is if we wanted to do that, we'd have to do a code amendment.
That's correct.
So I think what CityWorks is offering is sounds like a good deal to me. Tell me why it's not a good deal.
Well, I think it's a matter of going back through the process again. So I mean, you
don't have to change the handbook. That's
right.
That's good forever. But I mean, the tentative map, which would normally cost $24,000, and they do it for a couple thousand, you could get out of your bond requirements and you'd be set to go.
And again, that may be the valid way to go. It's tough to get our heads around the fact that we're having to go back through the entitlement process again. And so that puts conditions and everything that we have in place today, the surety that we have in place today, it pushes it to the side.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could add to that, part of the other issue here is not just the city of Sparks that looks at this tentative map and going back through that process again. We've got District Health, we've got NDEP, we've got other folks that have in the process. I think this was originally approved in 2004, if my memory serves me correct, 2005, somewhere in there. We've had 6 years where things could have changed that may have an impact on this project. From their perspective, so much of it's already been designed, approved, and built. To go back and have to change something, then add some additional cost. It's just a fear factor more than it is anything else. But quite frankly, that's a very real thing from a development committee standpoint. I think it would be worth pursuing, and we may want to spend some time checking with NDEP and District Health and trying to see where we stand from that perspective, so that we don't get ourselves in a position of doing something will end up costing the developer a whole bunch of money that's not necessary at this point. So that's the other flip side of it.
Mr. Schmidt? Mr. Kerrigan?
No, I was just going to bring up the fact that you don't want to go through the process, and we don't want to see you leave town like about 7 different developers have and left us with the nothing. Does that make sense? So I think it's a trust issue here. So you don't trust us, and we don't trust you. So no, I mean,
we trust you.
Well, you just said you didn't want to go back through the process, and I said I don't want you to not have a bond. So how do we get out of this? What the thing that you recommended, our city attorney says we can't do. Right. So we're stuck with community development coming up with a reversion to acreage, and then bringing a tentative map that's good for 4 years. There's a handbook in place, so I'm not sure what process you have to go back through. I mean, I'm not sure what the process is, because there is a handbook that's good forever. But tell us the easiest way out of this for all of us, since we.
For us to smile, thank you for the day, and
yeah, and for us to make sure that you're not going to skip town without doing the what you said you were going to do.
No, absolutely, and again, actions always speak louder than words, and our continuing to manage our HOA and be part of the process is that's our good faith gesture.
Yeah, and you know what? It's no offense against you, but Ryan and Bartis is a great example of a company that was #1 in the city of Sparks for 5-6 years, and all of a sudden the next day, seriously, disappeared in like 2 days.
Oh yeah.
So it's not. I'm not saying that it's going to be intentional, but I'm saying it has the possibility of happening. So I just want you to tell me, work this out. I guess I want you to work it out somehow to make us all happy.
Absolutely. I think, if reversion acreage and going through a map again is the best thing we can do, then we're gonna make that.
Yeah, because I brought up the fact that you, in your letter, said that you're willing to put in $5,000, and Neil just said it's what, 3,000?
2 or 3 is what.
2 or 3. Yeah. So you still have $3,000, and then you can just hand that over to us too if you want. And we'll find something to do with that.
Shape, or form, we probably will. Yeah, I think today, more than anything else, we wanted to see if there was any ability. And again, we offered to pay for staff time because we work in a number of cities and counties, and we understand that there's limitations in resources. And so, if we could do our part to pay for the services of city staff, we would. If it made some sense to look at doing a modification to the code, that's something we would offer to pay for. And if that's something that it's not at the council's pleasure, then we'll look at what we've got and move forward with it.
One question I have is, where do we stand if you let the bond lapse and you don't, and you walk away from the project? Then where does the city stand?
Well, I'll give you my layman's opinion of that, but the city, I believe, is the third-party beneficiary of those performance bonds, and so you would presume that if we let them go, that the bond company would notify you of that and hopefully give you, ample time to perfect those bonds, meaning getting the money out of them before they would lapse. That's how I generally understand it to be.
Okay.
That's assuming you get notified, and that's assuming lots of other things take place. And that's the problem with the bonding world is that paradigm's totally changed from where it was also. And so we're trying to deal with that reality of today and try to make something work that works in the existing paradigm. Because quite frankly, the bonding part of the world is not a real great place to be right now for anything.
Yeah. And like I told you when we met, to me it's not putting the city in any more jeopardy than they already are. So if we can work this out with some way without putting the city in more jeopardy than they already are, then I would be willing to do whatever needs to be done. But that's my main process. I don't want to see the city in a worse position than they are now. Mr. Smith.
I prefer to pull this and let you do your homework on the health department and everything else and see if the city's position on a couple $1,000s works for you. I mean, that's my opinion. It's been out there. We can wait 2 more weeks and see what you can do on that end of it so we can make it, we don't want to lose you. We want to work it out as best as possible. And I think that would be the best thing to do. But
a couple more weeks or another month help or not?
I think it would give us some answers.
Yeah, it would give us some answers. Give us
so
some
maybe, I got a couple more questions, but then maybe we can continue this until the second meeting in April, maybe give them some time, 30 days. Okay.
2 weeks from today, is that enough time?
Yeah, well, we got some more questions. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick questions. I want to make sure everybody's on the same sheet of music that $2 million is the number. That's everybody's agree with that, okay? Because I've heard different numbers thrown out here. I want to make sure that is the number, is $2 million.
Yeah. And we looked it up on the stuff that we actually brought with us, and it's $2 million. And keep in mind the improvements that are on the ground. Neil and I have talked about it. Storm drain isn't released until catch basins are in and all that type of stuff is done. So that's the component that's still being held.
I understand we're all living in different worlds today than we were 2 years ago. My concern is being thrown into an alternate world that I didn't, plan on going to, and that's where my concern with this whole thing is that whatever we do here becomes, practice, habit, and eventually becomes law, no matter how you look at it. And I want to make sure that we're very, very careful here in what we do. I brought up the issue in discussion, and I haven't heard it talked about. I want to see where staff is at. Is letter of credits an acceptable method of bonding this? Maybe that's for the attorney to tell me. Is a letter of credit like we did with Lennar an acceptable form of bond payment per our Sparks Municipal Code?
Very quickly, actually, in this time, a letter of credit is preferable to a bond and certainly acceptable to staff.
And that's acceptable to legal too, as yes, satisfying our bonding requirement?
Absolutely.
Okay. And in the next 2 weeks, I want, as you're researching your issues of how to go through this thing, because I think continuing is the best course of action here. But I think you need to look at how can we meet this thing on a, you have to look at your bank and letter of credit and everything else like that. What can we do with a letter of credit? Are we going to require the full $2 million, or can we look at a give and take here that, something 50% in the hand is better than, nothing in the off to the side in a bond or something else like that. I mean, I think staff is trying to come up with some reasonable solutions here. I know they're not acceptable to everybody, but like I said, to you in the meetings, I'm concerned about where this is going to go, because I'll probably have, if we say, okay, well, let's just take and change Sparks Municipal Code where we no longer require bonds, we're going to do this about 20 times. It's not one time. We're not the only folks here that we're in the development community, and that scares me. That scares me for what I've seen sitting on out there right now. So I'm all in favor, if that's acceptable with the council and with you folks and the staff, is continuing this item for 2 weeks, and come back in 2 weeks and tell us what other possible solutions are out there on the table.
2 weeks enough, or would you rather have 30 days?
It's up to you.
You tell me.
Why don't we take 30 days?
Okay.
Let's be
So maybe we can do this the first meeting in May? Is that acceptable to you guys?
Yeah.
I'll change my motion.
You'll look at doing a letter of credit, which they're not free either, are they?
No, yeah, we'll look at it.
Okay.
It may not be an absolution. The other one may be a better one, but we'll work through it all.
Okay, Mr. Schmidt, you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we continue this item for 30 days to be heard on the first meeting in May.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Schmidt, seconded by Councilman Kerrigan to continue this till the first meeting in May of 2011. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Okay, comments from the council and city manager. Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you. Sean, are we going to bring back any, like the legislative, we used to put that as an opener just to keep it under council meetings in case we had a problem or wanted our lobbyists to take a look at something? I mean, how are we doing that now?
The process that we're following is to give you a weekly report and ask the council if they wish something to be brought forward. We would then schedule it for a meeting.
Okay.
Can I?
I'm not sure that's timely, but I mean, there's a couple things out there that I thought we'd probably like to discuss.
Sure.
Two of them are bills. One is about the open meeting law. I think they're trying to change it two different ways, and the other one's about ward elections. I think it would be worth discussion, but it might be OBE, right? They might have already voted on it.
Yeah.
I think they're doing it Friday.
Yeah, see, so it doesn't matter. Okay.
Mr. Carey.
I think Julia may have had a comment about
Mr. Ratty.
Well, I would just add to the process, and Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but my additional understanding is that if any council member has something that they'd like the lobbyist to give them more information on or take a look at, that you kick it through the Government Affairs Committee and it goes on to our weekly meetings there. Again, trying to time limit with the legislature being on their time frame instead of ours, so that you still get what you're looking for, even if we don't necessarily get the opportunity to vet it here.
Julia, why would I correct you if you're right?
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Carey.
Mr. Mayor, I have some appointments to announce.
Go for it.
Appointments to the following committees are available. These committees will be for next calendar year, being July 1 of next year. We currently have 2 appointments to the Civil Service Commission for a 3-year term. We also have 4 appointments to the Advisory Committee for the Disabled for a 2-year term. We also have 3 appointments to the Sparks Parks and Recreation Commission for a 3-year term. And in addition, there is 1 appointment to the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Board of Trustees. This particular appointment does expire on June 15th, and that appointment is for a 4-year term. Any member of the committee who is interested in getting involved with these committees are invited to submit an application to the Sparks City Clerk's office using our community service application. This application is available online at www.cityofsparks.us. Simply click on the Governing tab and then click on Boards, Commissions, and Get Involved, and you will there find our community service application. These applications will be collected over the next 2 weeks, at which time they will be forwarded to the mayor and included in a future city council agenda. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Seeing no further business, we're adjourned. That's the guy that I recognized.